Chapter 38, Hate. Hate.
You're a self-centered, arrogant jerk who looks down on lower-class people. I hope you know that. It is my greatest wish that one day it catches up to you.
Anonymous. Eventually, the witch quit rubbing the rod in her brain and looked up. She no longer sat amid the press room wreckage, but on a flat stone in a moonlit field, which fanned toward the Capitol and its fires. 3 men passed. Sharp dressed in suits and suede, they cocked their heads among one another. One caught sight of the witch and did a double take.
It's her.
They crowded around her. From a frontal view, she recognized them, although they hadn't worn clothes before, Cook's men. She blinked, the field faded, she had never left the press room. A tide of people climbed over crushed chairs and past hewn walls toward the Capitol. But when she rubbed her eyes the previous image of the field transposed on this image, it made her ill. Alerted by the first 3, others swarmed her. Someone seized her wrists, another shoved her, a few tried to claw her away. A feeble attempt to hoist her onto shoulders failed and her collapse caused a domino reaction among the crowd.
All right,
she muttered beneath the noise.
All right.
She didn't know what was all right, but it was the easiest thing to say.
Hey, come on, you're mucking it all up, let the lady speak,
said one of Cook's men, perfect image of strapping young professional save for a glittering earring set in one lobe.
I happen to be an acquaintance of hers, all of you stand down.
2 more of Cook's apostles appeared, followed by a staggered further 3, and combined in their many-hued suits they managed to form a protective barrier.
Let her speak, let her speak.
She had nothing to say. Everything inside had become swollen. She had already spoken, on the television.
All right,
okay, equilibrium, evenness, peace. They took it as a call for silence, and despite their numbers, despite their rapidity, despite many not even caring to hear and shoving through the crowd toward the Capitol, an eerie quietude struck her on the head. She swayed, her knees buckled, everything became heavy. 2 men supported her.
They hurt her,
said the earring guy.
They've wounded her, she's hurt.
Just leave her alone. Please. She didn't want to talk. She wanted to be alone, forever. After all her dreams, the irony shivved into her gut.
All right. She's not hurt at all, idiot. I don't see any blood. It's magic, they used some kinda magic spell on her. Who did it, the cat? Schrödinger? We'll tear them up, won't we?
The fragile silence shattered and everyone went nuts again, shouting, calling out. Humans emerged to jockey for the witch's seated role of leader. A loud enough voice howled, "Justice!" or something like it, and the tides followed that voice toward the Capitol. In the commotion, she got separated from Cook's friends, but new hands seized her by the shoulders and guided her along the twisting friction of so many bodies. A door kicked open and the hands pulled her inside, set her on a chair. A face cut into view, Riley, ponytail swishing.
"Hiya, you did great. Better than I coulda ever done, damn. You take it easy now, we'll finish it."
She winked, pointed finger guns at her, and sidestepped back out the door to melt into the mob. All right. A dark room. She sat in the first of a long row of seats. Additional terraced rows descended to a semicircular stage at the bottom, where more people gathered. It looked like a theater. Was there a theater like this so close to the capital? Or another trick of the miasma? Why care? If only these seats didn't have armrests, she could stretch out and sleep. Below, again and again, people climbed onto the stage, which was covered in thick smoke. Again and again they immediately fell back into the waiting arms of the crowd. It didn't look like force compelled them, more like they spread their arms and trust fell backward. But it clearly annoyed them, they were desperate to get on the stage, they tried all parts of it, some even attempted the stairs. Among them, or more accurately near them, were Berwin and Darien. A weird moment of happiness struck her that she had no idea what to do with. She had mentally labeled them both dead the moment they gallivanted after Clown Muffle, but Berwin seemed totally fine and Darien, although unconsciously resting her head on Berwin's shoulder, breathed. Although her good feeling faded fast, it generated enough residual energy for the witch to haul herself from her seat and half fumble, half drag herself to them.
You made it.
Berwin nodded.
Indeed. Somehow. What happened? Clown Muffle, is she? Right there.
Berwin cocked a thumb toward the stage while administering a syringe to Darien's neck.
That demon truly cannot be defeated, I did warn you. She simply imagines a reality in which she does not lose, and that reality subsequently becomes ours. It must be her power. I've heard nobody, not even her, knows her wish. I can see certain wishes that might lead to such an outcome.
She draped Darien as best she could into a seat. The witch examined the stage, but saw only smoke.
Then how would you live? Begged. I, quite simply begged. For my life, for hers.
She tapped Darien's cheek.
A final and desperate gambit, yet somehow it had an effect. Our clown's been a different beast ever since. There, Pepper.
Darien stirred, moodily, and Berwin forgot the witch to attend to her. So the witch moved on, into the open area in front of the stage. She swayed with each step, numb-armed, and did not feel much need to advance. Yet something stirred her, this sloshing inside, and she kept thinking, all right. This is it, all right. One final note of closure, then I can die in peace, all right. Pushing aside the people, who recognized her and shunted away in deference, she climbed onto the stage. A whip of her wand waved a beam of light that dispersed the immediate wall of smoke, so that she carved a foothold for herself on the tough, school auditorium-style planking.
Hey!
Her voice deadened in the fog. But by holding out her wand, she could create a path. Several humans made tentative attempts to follow, but she held a hand for them to wait.
Magical threat! Let a witch handle it.
That's right. No need for anyone else to get hurt. Fine sentiment, eh? A nice little hypocrisy, her the humanitarian, her who called for riots on nationwide news. Ha. She actually laughed, low and sonorous, elongated by the miasma, an echo that resounded back at her, ha. Ahaha. Ehe. A wisp of fog cleared and Clown Muffle sat before her, cross-legged, hands twisted as some cheap parodic Buddha. Nothing had tainted her outfit, but she wore an unexpectedly pensive expression, eyes sunken and staring, not at the witch dead ahead, but into nowhere.
Hey!
Clown Muffle's pupils tilted.
You're... That's right. Me again.
They stared in silence. Here she was, the final confrontation. Now?
I'm a good person,
said Clown Muffle. Such a bizarre comment prompted only a harsh, mocking laugh.
No, no you're not. What? What the hell? That's always what I've been, you understand. A good person. Yes. A true magical girl. I adhered to certain standards.
She lowered her face and rubbed her forehead.
A good person.
The witch realized. Somehow, Berwin had actually beaten Clown Muffle. Just by begging, so simple, it was surprising nobody begged before, well she usually fucked them up too fast. Bit by bit, Clown Muffle had made concessions to herself, concessions necessary to survive, necessary to maintain her sanity. She accepted no authority over herself save herself. That's right, that's who she was, she rejected everything except herself, and so she had always chosen herself over everything else. So she stooped to that need, bit by bit, to heal herself, to accomplish her goals, for survival. It was like what Gatineau said. At the end of that day underground, Clown Muffle had simply abandoned the part of herself that couldn't bear that sort of torture. Just as she abandoned all her morals and statutes, one by one, to reach this point. The willow that bent to not break. And it had taken only one moment. One moment of clarity for her to realize just how low to the ground she had twisted, and in that moment she snapped back with all pent-up tension unleashed. How would the witch know this? Well, one might call it empathy.
Ahaha. Ahaha. Ha. Ha. Clown Muffle, oh Clown Muffle, oh Clown Muffle, I guess that's right, there would only ever be one way for you to die, that's if you killed yourself, isn't that right? Isn't it? There must be so many people who would wish for that, immortality saved by suicide. Damn, ha, ha.
That's a great ending. Yeah, let's go out that way. Yeah. Let's die. She could not die. Some final string wound tight around her neck, even as every other mooring to this world vanished down the gullet of a great black hole. And with a wry smile she said, without thinking.
You know, we could always say we did what was necessary. Right, Clown Muffle? We did what was necessary to survive. Maybe that means, to survive, we can ignore this too. Even this. Say fuck you to them all, right? All those ideals, like man. That's just society, yo. Those were never ours to begin with, society imprinted them on us. Don't murder? Oh man. Like, wasn't that the whole point? We wanted to be outside society, in our own special ways. And if that means society treats us like zeros, like dirt girls, then maybe we should treat it the same way. Destroy it completely, burn it until it's only you and me left. Then we can finally be what we truly want, without anything to tell us otherwise. Trial by combat. What's worth more, you or me or society? Winner takes all. That's why you guys are here, right?
She confronted the crowd.
You came to this city for the same damn reason. Who is worth more, you or this moronic government? If you can burn it down, well I guess that means you win. Anyone still standing at the end, they were right all along, yeah.
The crowd reacted at several points during her spiel. At the edge of the stage, several people shunted aside as Berwin forced herself through and tried to climb up.
What are saying? Have you truly lost your senses, you damn girl? Don't rile her, whatever you say don't say that.
Berwin got a leg onto the stage only for the stage to open up and bite her leg off. She tumbled into the arms of the humans, some of whom shouted for first aid. Completely unconcerned, Berwin slid a syringe into the bleeding stump and began to regenerate.
What'd ya say, Clowny my girl? Kill them all or die.
Mid-sentence she realized even this was stupid and drove her fingers into the soft flesh of her own throat. Her flesh, she found, was already coming apart, soft and squishy like a half-rotten corpse, which was, literally speaking, what she was. One momentous yank, that was all it took, and pop off came her head. She spiked it onto the ground, and while it tried to speak on its own to finish the sentence, she slammed her boot against it, again and again, until the bone of her skull cracked and broke apart. The brain mushed underneath. Her body slumped. Sludge spurted from her neck, once, twice, tapering, a trickle, nothing. Her body convulsed and went still. Her hat, which had gone flying when she pulled off her head, settled and floated on the tar.
Clown Muffle said. I'm.
While the witch's head did not exist, other observers did. To those among them possessing a magical bent, namely Berwin, it became clear that a change had occurred. Clown Muffle's typically white opal gem, embedded in the band of her top hat, had become a ghastly lavender.
Don't listen to her,
Berwin said.
She's lost it. There's no need, for any of this to continue. No need at all, If we all storm at once,
said a human.
No, we mustn't provoke her. She is extremely dangerous. Who the hell says mustn't?
Said Clown Muffle. The murmur went silent.
I should be done now.
The stage split apart, like a jaw with 2 rows of jagged teeth, and swallowed everything on it. A single grassy hill took its place. The Capitol loomed far in the distance and flames flickered from its dome. Atop the hill stood 2 guillotines, side by side. The humans and Berwin looked around. The theater had vanished, the seats disappeared, Darien had fallen onto her side, churning and moaning now more from withdrawal than injury, and the wind rustled their coats and hair. 1 guillotine blade had already fallen, the witch's head now cradled in a basket, her slumped body on its knees behind it. The other hung suspended above Clown Muffle, in a similar position but possessed still of all component parts. It was ending now. Finally. And Clown Muffle would come with the witch after all, to wherever they deserved to go. The sludge had left her and she now felt withered, empty. Nothing left, nothing at all. Nothing left but a tiny bead, a little marble of flesh in the pit of her vacancy, which started to roll down the slope her slumped body made, roll and roll and roll until it rolled out her neck and plopped into the grass. That bead was her friend, Stephanie Vo. Hemet, who Clown Muffle killed and the witch erased. Gone now. The decapitated body of the witch slid its hand across the grass and grabbed the palm of the girl beside her, Clown Muffle. They had almost become friends before, in that white world with the branches. Clown Muffle didn't need her, though, and maybe she still didn't need her, but this time, at least, they would die before they had the chance to betray one another. Clown Muffle's hand, at first balled into a fist, opened. It wrapped around the witch's hand and held tight. It's been a fun ride, Clown Muffle, it was fun to hate you, it hurt to need you. This is the best end for us both. And as long as we both accept it, it isn't even sad. Nobody watching is raising a voice in protest. Not Berwin, she understands. She's still in the world, she knows it's okay for me to die if you die too. Steph can't stop me, and nobody else would. So if I won't stop me, and you won't, then...
I'm sorry,
Clown Muffle said, although her inflection was dull, already dead, and it was impossible to know if she said it to the witch, said it to the watchers, said it to herself, perhaps said it to the little bead of some ghost she kept inside her gut. Clown Muffle's guillotine fell. A man scrambled over the crest of a nearby hill, climbed onto a stone, and shouted,
"They found the cat! They found the cat! They found the cat!" Typical of egomaniacs, you take a good story meant for everyone and make it about you. Going on about your depression, how it hauled you out of your dark place.
Anonymous. The guillotine cleaved Clown Muffle's head clean at the neck. Her head hit the ground, bounced up, and exploded. Out of the rain of streamers and confetti a fully formed Clown Muffle emerged, caught her top hat before it swirled too far away, and bowed stately stapler style until her brow scraped the grass. An audience cheered, although it wasn't the audience gathered, or any audience visible. She still clutched the witch's hand, but the witch had remained headless, a body bobbing while straw spewed out its neck. This would not do, so Clown Muffle swiped the witch hat off the ground and produced from it a jack-o'-lantern that she promptly affixed to the stump instead. A clap and a squiggle of a secretly produced wand sent a spasmodic shiver down the witch's body, and her limpness transformed into a coat rack kind of hanging, impressive only as Clown Muffle pinwheeled away from her to let her stand on her own scarecrow legs.
"My lovely assistant, Pumpkinhead,"
she offered by way of explanation, even though half the human audience had already broken from the hole, toward the distant stick figure proclaiming the cat's seizure. Others, torn between two shows, slowed in their escape, turning, twisting, watching both ways, and along this breadcrumb trail of heads Clown Muffle bounced, a simple coal-black shoe pressed against each head in turn, while Pumpkinhead followed by compulsion alone. The Knot Doctor in the mishmash, white cloak and scandalous underneath, cried in protest a Shakespearean sort of oath, one quite endearing, so that Clown Muffle in mid-flip between two stepping stones sent from her sleeve a single dove which transformed into a white rose as soon as it reached its intended recipient. But the Knot Doctor batted it to petals, hoisted her somnolent companion onto her back, and followed as fast as she could. Meanwhile, Pumpkinhead required the return of her lovely hat, but Clown Muffle realized said hat had lost its little bend, the tip had straightened entirely, so that its aesthetic became less witch and more Puritan. Witch hunter if one would, but it was nothing a deft fold couldn't solve, followed by a frisbee throw to land it exactly atop the grinning gourd. This fun Walpurgis knocked bounced upon the final head and down a winding slide around Mount Brocken into a pit of multicolored balls. By now Clown Muffle could feel her insides rotting, the ribs breaking into ash, the intestines liquefying, but she maintained the winning smile of the entertainer. After all, Pumpkinhead could still smile, even though she had to cut off her head to do it. The ball pit overwhelmed and they sank until they reached the bottom and fell down a cylinder on the sides of which were painted the kinds of stars you paint on a baby's bedroom wall. Then this sky dispersed and they descended in a flurry of acrobatic pirouettes toward the pitch-black Capitol and the million lights of torches held by the tide of humanity forming a singular whirlpool around it. The ant bodies, all merged into one big mass, broke apart and became distinct figures by the time they landed, by the time that even a scratch would shine the light right through Clown Muffle. Turgid reflecting pool water splashed around her ankles. Pumpkinhead dropped beside her, but they must have escaped the Knot Doctor. There rose before them in all its Greco-Roman glory the Capitol, blazing fortress, the walls scaled by interminable humanity. She had been here before. It was different now, but she had been here before. Now everyone ran the same direction as her, but she remembered a bit of splattered gore before the doorway, a pair of legs severed at the ankles and a splotch of what remained. Her eyeball rolled out, she caught it and it was a piece of coal. She plugged it back in and continued. It came apart as powder in her socket, but she continued, toward the activity in front of the Capitol, where 2 flights of stairs extended to its entrance. Despite the masses, though, the mezzanine at this entrance was bare except a single figure, slumped in the shoulders and hands in the pockets, larger than life projected so that she seemed to swell to the size of the whole dome, gnarled hair hanging and hangdog eyes lazy. She was. Who was she? She held a briefcase. Who did Clown Muffle once know?
Everyone, this woman said, please return home. It's under control. President DuPage has a bad cold. Nonetheless, the duties of state will be done. Please return home.
She sounded like she might fall asleep, or already had. Gatineau. That was her name, yes. Gatineau. Clown Muffle momentarily lost her purpose, stalled by this flourish of memory, and while the bodies rushed around her she placed a palm to her forehead and tried to remember her reason for still living before she instead died. Then a fierce cry pealed in this soundless sphere and her attention oriented through the tangled raw space columns to a post. About half the height of the Capitol mezzanine. It stood at a lazy angle, pulled by countless cords, which the people tugged in a semblance of unison to shift it toward an upright position. At its apex, bound, was her cat. They had shredded her. Punctures dribbled blood all over, one eyelid swollen shut, one cat ear severed and the other split down the middle. They cut up her uniform, loosened some bows and removed others, undid the parts that buttoned, one shoulder bare. A noxious dribble, not solely blood, down her chin. Using bobbing heads as platforms, Clown Muffle closed the gap, great long bounds while from one sleeve she drew her baton and the other a deck of cards. 52 fired at precise angles to sever the strings hoisting the post, and yet there were somehow more strings, an unfathomable number of strings, as though every human present in this multitudinous tide held one. A hand, connected to the body of the head she balanced upon, seized her ankle. A voice cried, "Schrödinger," and the attention of several turned toward her and Pumpkinhead. She swung her baton at the man who held her, visualized a world in which he lost his dear head and had to wear a pumpkin instead. A world where all these heads became pumpkins and they all followed her japing and gimbling with perpetual grins and a mischievous bent. Her baton stopped at contact with the man's skin, the millimeter distance before it caved the side of his skull. Her neck tautened and the visualized future of his head dispersing in gore rattled her dusty interior. She became instantly ashen all over, her baton clanged amid the tumult. A gunshot rang out and she allowed it to pierce her gut in a puff of smoke, but when a second shot came she caught the bullet in her teeth, chewed it like gum, and spat what remained alongside an arc of fruit punch posing as blood. A choke caught in her throat and her chest heaved, a jolted staggered half-balanced sway atop the same head, a sway that just so happened to evade 2 or 3 more bullets fired from the crowd, and with a final momentous hiccup she forced from her lips and into her hand a parasol, which one simple click opened and propelled her skyward. Up, up, through this dead dank air, to the post erected by the crowd, to her battered kitten. She discarded the parasol and clutched the post just below her cat's bound feet, and drew a single ace of hearts to free her. Vomit spittle dripped upon her top hat and more shots rang out. Just beyond, the Capitol's mezzanine stretched and the woman with the briefcase watched, bored. Someone lit a flame at the base of the post. A large amount of flammable material, papers and documents, had gathered there, and it went up instantly. The fires traveled in a spiral around the post, higher, higher, while Clown Muffle remained rooted looking at the cat and holding the card to the ropes. It was not her cat. That statement seemed impossible. It clearly looked like her cat. Identical to her cat. Minus, of course, all the abuse, but Clown Muffle had often imagined what her cat would look like abused, and it looked much like this. Suffering carved into every inch of visible flesh, the invisible inferred, like the space between the lines of a book. Pain and hopelessness rendered exquisitely, but it was not her cat. The cat's head lolled. Its voice came out a raspy whisper.
I wish to forget that. Forget that I.
Clown Muffle peeled back and landed on the tip of Pumpkinhead's broomstick as the flames reached the top of the post and engulfed the cat. She burned sensationally. At first, her screams disintegrated faster than she did, into the sound of a cat run over but still breathing in the road outside your house at night, a long and sorrowful yowl you might think was a werewolf if you were 8 and Charlie Viscara and up later than you should have been. But her image crumpled, became aliased and then devolved into JPEG artifacts, descending from 1080 to 144p over the course of a few seconds. Sand cascaded from her body. The image quality reduced past visibility. The crowd made noises too indeterminate to be called a cheer. On the mezzanine, the woman shuffled some papers in her briefcase. Her head tilted and she exhaled for a long time.
Well, there you go. You've roasted her, all happy now? It's time to settle down. Go back home.
Her voice blared as though from a megaphone, and the crowd murmured in response.
The DuPage administration pledges to listen to your complaints.
Across the face of the Capitol, upon its dome, gigantic screens appeared. They presented the final moments of the cat, from the moment Clown Muffle stepped away until nothing remained but dust. The moment repeated on a loop, projected at least 10 times. Clown Muffle and Pumpkinhead drifted on the broomstick. Funny. For a moment Clown Muffle thought she had a reason to persist. Even if she had wasted every worthwhile element of her own self, there was still another person, external to her, for which she could bother to live. Pumpkinhead spoke, without speaking, "All right, can we die now?" And Clown Muffle had to wonder why they hadn't already, why the cat was even important. Because she had a particular aesthetic? She scratched her head and hair came out between her fingers. Please. Please. I just want to die, said smiling Pumpkinhead. I can't unless you do too. You're the only thing I have left. Please. Please. I know dying is super fucking hard for you, but please. Aesthetic. It mattered. Fashion, uniforms. They expressed the soul. Souls mattered. Because souls mattered, their expression mattered. She tried to tell herself this, but even these words sounded hollow. She knew she had said them before with utmost conviction. With conviction in nothing else, even. Where did all her paragraphs go? On Magnet. Where did they go? She wrote them, didn't she? She had the drive and energy to write them, where did that go? She only needed one thing. One thing to hold on to, anything, give her one thing, one excuse not to die, one thing to have left. The Gatineau with the briefcase might know. She piloted the broomstick with her feet as she careened past the ashes of the Not-Cat onto the mezzanine. 27 previously unseen magical girls formed to bar her way, but a careless half-flick from Gatineau shuffled them aside. The mezzanine, contrary to initial observation, did not possess Gatineau alone, but an entire army of magical girls, and not an army like that sham in Chicago, where everyone wore the same drab costume. Here a cornucopia of individualistic spirit bloomed on speckled petals for her consumption, girls in all manner of garb, girls she had seen on Magnet, girls she had not, girls beautiful, girls hideous, girls sprightly and girls depressive, girls of every texture and flavor, arranged in patterns. With Gatineau at their center. For a moment spirit revived within Clown Muffle, a thought and feeling toward a previous bent, the twitch of her fingers possessed and a rapid-fire summation of worth on a scale from 1 to 10, but only a moment. None of these girls were real, she understood. They were the same as the Not-Cat roasted on the spit, not the same as the Not-Doctor.
Juliet,
said Gatineau.
where's she? Juliet. The cat. Real one. Don't tell me you fell for it too. I figured a connoisseur like you could spot the difference. She's. You don't know. Great. Well, knowing her, she ran and hid the first spot of trouble. With her power she can keep herself safe. What about the people, you think that's enough to pacify them?
Checking her cell phone, she cast a nonchalant glance over the mob below.
I wonder if they'll notice if the cat's back next week like nothing changed. Maybe we should play it safe. I'm sure she can use her power to make her face look different, right? You know anything about that?
Clown Muffle seized Gatineau by the lapels of her well-designed but horribly kempt jacket and forced their faces together.
Give me a reason to live. Any.
The phone slipped back into a pocket. Gatineau's eyes flitted to Clown Muffle's gem.
Ah.
But her momentary understanding became confusion again.
How? You're supercharged with energy, there's no way you should be that bad.
A tiny wisp of a creature butted her way through the myriad of exotic birds and waved hands in frantic gesticulation. Her costume was so atrocious Clown Muffle loved it, and a spark of real life existed in her face.
Charlie, Clown Muffle, whatever you wanna be called, you know what it is, you know what makes it hurt inside. Will you shut the fuck up already, Nagisa?
Gatineau placed a hand on her head and shoved her back. A single thumb angled over her shoulder indicated a group of 56 girls, each training a gun on a single soul gem pinned to the Capitol doors.
I'm being nice enough just letting you hang around, so come on.
She checked her phone again, tilted her head and re-examined the mob, shrugged.
I think it worked, it was the cat they wanted, the cat they got, they're lost, they'll break up soon. Gimme your gem, Clown Muffle, I'll make you feel better. Your magic won't do anything,
said Nagisa, although in a whisper, like saying it quieter would mean she wasn't breaking whatever rules kept that soul gem hostage to the 56.
When the problem is inside, no amount of energy will save her. Go eat some fucking cheese already, Clown Muffle. What the hell is your issue? Did the cat really die somewhere and you're sad about it? You're not even a human being, the hell happened? One thing,
said Clown Muffle.
One thing is all I need.
Gatineau clearly wanted out. She kept glancing at the crowd below, kept checking her phone.
Fashion,
she said after a moment's thought.
Check out Nagisa here, look at this costume, it's something literally only you could like. At least give it an out of 10 for me, you'll feel better I'm sure. What the fuck is with the pumpkin?
She lashed her hand out and knocked the pumpkin head off Pumpkinhead. It hit the ground, splat, and Pumpkinhead fell off her broom and crawled around for it.
Perfect, the cat's death is trending everywhere.
Gatineau held the phone up for Nagisa to see.
Catharsis without hope, that's exactly what we need. The symbol dies, the regime lives on, the people feel at peace like they resolved something even if they resolved jack fucking dick. Then they can convince themselves to die. Please,
said Nagisa.
Please what? That's exactly what your shitty god does, right?
Nagisa said nothing. Gatineau snapped her fingers and turned again to Clown Muffle.
Is that what this is about? You feel bad about what we're doing? What you've done? Is that the thing?
Clown Muffle said nothing.
Oh come on Clown Muffle. This is what you want too, don't delude yourself. You've hated these people, this world a lot longer than I have. Or is hate the wrong word? Apathy probably sums it better. You haven't given a damn about these people in years. Maybe your whole life. What was your wish again?
Clown Muffle said nothing.
Ooh, Nagisa, I bet you know what her wish was, right? Whole omniscient god thing, or at least her secretary, you must keep better books than me. What did Clown Muffle wish for? Tell me and I'll give you a treat.
Nagisa said nothing.
How about tell me and I won't blast Sayaka's soul gem to 10 million smithereens.
A hesitant pause, a glance toward the hostage soul gem, and Nagisa sighed.
I'm sorry, Clown Muffle. Trust me, I don't wanna infringe your privacy, but I wished,
said Clown Muffle.
I wished.
She leaned back against the mezzanine railing. Pumpkinhead found her pumpkin head and placed it back on her neck, although it was not quite shaped the same as before. She wished. Well, she remembered it instantly. Or it was better to say, she never actually forgot. There was nothing left inside her, anyway, except a few little bits. The tides had finally gone back down, and certain things languished, exposed, in the dead light.
I wished for Amelia Paz to disappear. Ooh.
Gatineau pursed her lips.
Amelia Paz, I'm sure she deserved it, whoever she was, or maybe she didn't. But there you go, there you go. Don't tell me you're sprouting a conscience out of such a sour seed.
Clown Muffle said nothing. So. She had always been garbage. Always, her whole life. That made sense. Yep. If she thought about it, that made a lot of sense. Gatineau seemed to realize her words did not have their intended effect. Her cocksure attitude softened, she placed a hand on Clown Muffle's shoulder.
Hey! Hey, it's all right. Hey! I'm sorry. Look, let's go inside, take a little break. I'm sure you'll feel fine with a breather. We'll find Juliet, and then you'll have a reason to live, trust me. Clown Muffle,
said Nagisa.
Please.
Any reason would work. Clown Muffle did not want to die no matter how garbage she was, above all she wanted to live, but there were certain things with which she could not live. She would trust Gatineau. Trust the concept of her cat Juliet, trust it all. With a motion for Clown Muffle to follow, Gatineau stepped toward the Capitol doors. She made it only one step, however, because a voice from below called.
Do not lose this hope you hold.
That voice. Of all the people she could forget, that one she could not. That voice belonged to the handmaiden. Now that had been a reason, but that reason ended, the handmaiden died. Or so she had been told. A sudden excitement flared, she turned toward the voice, but it was not the handmaiden. It looked more like that tasteless girl from Minneapolis. Yet again, only the hated names returned to her. Albino, conservative dress, and walking atop a bridge of ice that spread above upstretched heads. At her back, fiddling with fingers, perfect inverse to the starched collar of the first, a woman nearly nude, bronzed in a swimsuit. Gatineau spat static and shoved Clown Muffle aside for a better view.
Cook! Cook! Everyone, please listen to me,
said the one who had the handmaiden's voice.
Do not give up. Cook's here, Cook's here.
Gatineau oscillated.
What the hell? Do not allow your hate to mask your hope. Everyone. You did not come to this city to murder a single cat. There is a greater purpose. Everyone. Cook, what the hell are you doing here?
The one in the swimsuit shrugged.
Because I'm dumb.
While the albino spouted more words into the crowd, kept repeating everyone in particular, Gatineau swiveled away, strode along the mezzanine, followed by Nagisa and a squad of henchmen not girls, mumbling to herself, counting on fingers.
Cook! Cook, well, and with all my centurions exhausted. My clown muffle exhausted. Shit, shit, shit.
She opened her briefcase and rifled through the pages within.
Damn! Everyone! Remember your hope! Remember your hope for a better future! You came here because you are suffering. Do not be distracted so easily. Everyone!
Everyone didn't seem to know what to make of the albino exhorting them. Most continued to leave, as though they did not even hear her. Understandable. The crowd spanned an enormous distance, and she was a single albino, despite her elevated platform. Gatineau didn't even listen to her, immersed in unseen logistics, and for a moment Clown Muffle thought she might be the only one. Even she wasn't sure why she listened.
Everyone! Don't take it personally, Millie,
said the one called Cook.
I think everyone's just tired of talking? You gotta read a mood, really. Go with, well, I'd say the flow, but I'm kinda getting a little predictable with that line. Go with everyone. And right now, I think they want a little action.
A single tensed foot and Cook launched forward. Fast. Wielding twin spires of cyclonic liquid bursting from the edge of the bridge, from which rained 177 spear-sized icicles upon the mezzanine. Gatineau snapped her fingers the instant before they shattered against her.
I know how to handle her.
Instantly her goons shuffled to intercept, and nothing but a few glinting fragments bounced against her tailored suit. She turned sharply on a heel and marched toward the Capitol doors. Rather leisurely pace given the situation, even given time to check her phone again. Her birds of paradise, meanwhile, waged the warfare. Here they formed, movable walls that shifted across the mezzanine, organized immaculately by the weapons they wielded. Barriers of every possible sort emerged. Cook's liquid cyclones crashed against them, shattered 10 or 20, but ultimately dispersed against the sheer volume stacked against her. Undaunted, she gallivanted across the air, light as air, above and below the projectile volley. Her skin glistened, even in this darkness, and tendrils formed out of the moisture to skewer anything she could not evade. A graceful tango one way, the other, while further watery worms sprouted and bashed, crashed and roared, sizzled and cracked. Steam rose in some areas and others froze into glacial lumps. Left, right, center, downward, direction lost meaning. Gatineau motioned for her goons to remove the soul gem from the door. They did so, and also opened the door for her, and she passed through. Some bits of water slipped through the cracks in the defense, every so often a fake girl melted. Clown Muffle, cleaved to the balustrade, had at her either side Pumpkinhead and Nagisa. Both of them spoke to her, their words indistinct, not solely due to the shrillness of combat. Clown Muffle's interest went elsewhere. She watched this woman Cook who vaguely existed as an entity already storage-binned in some mental attic and wondered where, how, with what nerve she dared fight. With nothing on? Seriously? She had seen bad clothes, good clothes, mediocre clothes, the kinds of clothes so indistinct as to be uncategorizable, but no clothes. None, a bikini, a frilly sort of skirt, gladiator sandals, hibiscus in the hair.
Hey, hey!
Nagisa seized and shook her.
Fight, you have to fight.
You won't, said Pumpkinhead. The area in front of the Capitol doors accrued such a concentration of faceless but colorful creatures and their shimmery, cutesy, sparkly armaments that only a master magician could slip through their barricade. Cook, uncaring, instead redirected a whirled drill of ice and water into the Capitol's wall. Glass shattered, wood splintered, Chunks sprayed everywhere as a noise like a blender drowned everything. The black paste that coated the walls broke only after the walls themselves did, only after a few seconds but before the goon barricade could shift positions, and Cook dropped into the hole. The fight left Clown Muffle's field of vision and she remained against the balustrade, left with nothing, blinking, thinking, trying to think, while onto the mezzanine climbed new people, real people, led first by real girls most of whom she knew. There was Baltimore, there's some girls from Philadelphia, then men and women who could only be human, up the stairs or vaulting the balustrade to rage against the barriers which retreated in disarray to more and more defensible positions.
Everyone! Everyone, we can do it! Together!
The albino was screaming from somewhere although Clown Muffle didn't see it. Someone climbing knocked over Pumpkinhead. Everyone! Together! Everyone! Everyone! Please direct your attention to the barrier that our friend Gatineau has erected in front of the Capitol doors. It's actually 63 barriers, if you can believe it, and if you would like, I can count them individually for you. But for the purposes of our show tonight, that won't be necessary. You can all see this barrier is impenetrable. Look at our friend there, the man with the tattoos on his bald head, assailing only the first of these barriers with a wrench. And that young miss over there, having ripped her skirt to run better, she is even firing a gun at it. Clearly there is no illusion here, these barriers are inviolable. Now, we could take the route of our friend Cook and burrow through the wall at a completely different point. Several of our more acrobatic friends in the audience have already done so. But this is the capital of the United States, a monument of some importance, and it would be a shame to damage it. Well, that's no concern to mine, but what does matter is that I show you friends how to walk through these 63 barriers as though they do not exist. Step aside, please. I require complete concentration. Yes, you there, Mr. Wrench. You too, with the ripped skirt. Aside, aside. Your full attention. Impatient crowd today, eh? Very well, I'll quicken the pace. But I do warn you, doing so reduces the chance of my magic being successful. Without certain incantations and precautions, the chances of success drop to only 43%, and failure means I'll be trapped in the barriers and bifurcated. I am perfectly willing to take this risk, but I implore the more faint-hearted in the audience to look away. Shield the eyes of the children. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very dangerous trick. Flourish. Hand pressed against the first barrier.
Simple. A simple trick. Simply push.
And she pushed, and her hand went through.
As long as you have magic in your heart, you can push.
She stepped through the barriers, one by one, although many were stacked so close together she only had to step once to clear several. She pretended to struggle on the last barrier, acted as though her foot was caught, but after judging the crowd to be fed up with her antics, pulled through and bowed on the other side. The fake girls looked at her but did not act, apparently without instruction to. By the time she passed through the doors into the Capitol, Pumpkinhead and Nagisa had already flown through the breach Cook created.
"You're really doing it,"
said Nagisa. "Why," said Pumpkinhead. "Why won't you give up and die? Why? What stupid reason could you possibly have?" She didn't have a reason. Everyone had a reason. That's what magic was for, right? The magician stood alone on stage. The master, severed from humanity, wholly distinct. But he performed for everyone. She raced forward. The inside of the Capitol was anything, everything, no clear geography or topography, the way Clown Muffle loved it. Gatineau trudged ahead undaunted, assailed by an endless strike of ice and water. Her briefcase swished left and right her fake girls. It would be best to conceptualize them not as unique entities but as an extension of Gatineau herself, absorbed impacts and diverted flows. They propelled counterattacks in impenetrable fields, endless quantities, mazes where every route reached the dead end of a speeding bullet. Clown Muffle found the correct routes anyway, while Cook used her own minion, the entire liquid element, to power through.
You too, Clown Muffle.
Gatineau did not bother to glance over her shoulder. Tch!
Now that's trouble.
Nonetheless, the non-world rearranged, and in front of Gatineau stood immense double doors, set with a proportionally absurd keyhole, something so large a person ought to have been able to fit through it. A semicircular formation of minions buffered Gatineau as she opened her briefcase and tossed another sheet to the floor. From it emerged an identical replica of Gatineau, except instead of a suit she wore something pink and unpleasant, with a staff topped by a heart.
"Open it,"
the original Gatineau said, and the copy climbed up the face of the door and slid herself into the keyhole. The body twisted. An inner mechanism unlocked. Cook said something like,
"Ah, I think I get what she's doing."
And the door started opening, opening, and opening, opening like the door during an all-day marathon of Little Nemo in Slumberland, when the only time you happen to look up from your toys is the scene where the door opens. Again and again you look up and every time you do the same door is opening. It swung inward. Cook's lateral slicing swimming pool-sized disc of ice cleaved enough barriers to break a hole, but Gatineau already stepped into the seething breathing space where dark shadows rose and fell in layers upon one another, rising, falling, rhythmic but not necessarily alive. Somewhere between 10 and 20 such figures. It was unusual for Clown Muffle to fail to count exactly, and more concerning even that the exact total existed on so wide a range, but the end of each of these shadow creatures did not necessarily correlate to the beginning of another. And at the apex of their slumbering mound, a small throne of black matter. Gatineau stopped only a few feet into the room, while what remained of her scattered forces did everything imaginable to prevent the entrance of Clown Muffle and Cook. One arm, with the briefcase, hung leaden at her side. The other flicked out, overly limber, into a perfect salute.
"Madam President, I apologize for this disturbance of your slumber."
Only the heaving, breathing.
"Ah."
Cook skewered a girl who looked like a bird.
"Ah." "Madam President, a matter of interest has arisen, and I believe I would be derelict in my duties if I did not inform you."
Heaving, breathing.
"Madam President, Lady Cook has arrived."
Two eyes on the throne snapped open.
The whole story reeks of apathy.
Anonymous. Although the physical blackness that encompassed Washington had patched the hole in the Capitol dome Cicero once created, the hole itself remained. And here, now, a second hole broke, on the dome's opposite side, so that an ignorant observer might surmise post facto that a singular beam of destruction passed through one end and out the other. Cook hurtled upward. Clown Muffle hurtled upward. Hedgewish hurtled upward, and hurtling them came the singular concerted force of all this dark energy, coagulated howling thick and black across the canvas of night. Let's do it motherfuckers, albeit elongated to such a feral howl that only by the relatively corporeal fuck could the rest be pieced retroactively. Washington dwindled beneath them. They entered space, endless space, more colorful than the world they left, Denver's world. Denver had a wish. It was in her file, and Denver kept a more complete file on herself than any of the hundreds she stalked, a more complete file than even the Empire demanded of its denizens. In it, scrawled, dreams and catchphrases, segments from youth and age alike, a preteen idealism coupled with a morose ancient wisdom.
I wish I could change this world.
What an excellent wish. No mention of how to change it, of course. But that was the rub, that probably mattered less. No, she knew exactly what she wished for and why, it was right there in the verbiage.
I wish I could.
And despite her wish, the world didn't change. Did Kyubei warn her ahead of time? A wish like that dwelled in the domain of God alone? Did she care? Did she believe him? Well, God, you listening? No God here. As they spiraled, gravity stripped away, ebb and flow stripped away, all laws resolved to the blankness of the stars. Clown Muffle caught an asteroid. Cook latched her foot within the crater of a miniature moon. A girl from Laredo with thrusters in her feet laced arms around Hedgewish while the vampiric form of DuPage, still becoming something comprehensible, blotted this space's color, fanning wide and broad and encircling them as their descent finally began. They fell only 2 feet and landed on the rounded edge of the Capitol dome while ant-like crawled everyone else through the holes. Thank God for you, Cook, thank fucking God. Cook's liquid flowed, DuPage's liquid flowed, the human tide with liquid tensile strength flowed, and bounding circumnavigated the span of the spinning dome, spinning lateral as though the ground turned perpendicular to itself. The Laredo girl exploded in dust and whirling. Hedgewish glimpsed someone rising above the crowd, swishing ponytail, hands clenched by her shoulders like she held the straps of a backpack, but she flew instead of walked, so Hedgewish surmised she mimed more of a jet prefix. The jerky, levitating motions rose Kenosha above the rest, gave her a good angle, but she had to maintain at least one clenched hand to persist this illusion of the jetpack, and that limited her firepower to a one-handed finger pistol, which she jerked back absurdly fast, more like a submachine gun, and littered Hedgewish's more expendable papers to pulp. Sluggish, flicking her temple for stimulation, Hedgewish paced around the gravitational pull of the dome and ignored those who attacked her. On one side she had the continent's best healers beaming restorative magic into her veins, on the other the continent's best ranged artillery. This fight mattered to someone, not her. She didn't want to be here anymore, she had papers to file, let someone else take charge. Cook, you slut whore. Cook baby, my lovely, you came back to me just to get fucked so hard, so hard. Within the masses of blackness the DuPage avatar writhed, wrapped her gaunt arms around herself, clutched her shoulders, quivered. Come here, you're the only one I have left, I need you, Cook, I need you. Great black arms cascaded toward Cook, crashed through her walls of ice, but fumbled thick-fingered as the lithe human form slipped free. Everything's so fucking boring now. It's so empty, I need you to fire me up, everyone else was such a disappointment. You won't die that easy, will you? Cook, Cook. 16 witches remained in the miasma, not counting the witch who appeared on TV and now seemed to be a pumpkin head. They served as DuPage's harem, or at least they slept with her, and raging roaring out the Capitol holes they came clawing, now awake and rending the flatness at least with their labyrinths. One segment of the world became a circus tent dervish, another a garden of earthly delights, a third the inside of a piano with strings twanging and dicing humans to ribbons. An 8-armed gimp Brahma with zippers up and down its 4-faced head crawled along the walls, crushing bodies with its steely palms, and bulldozed an unwitting Kenosha into the muck. Both arms pinned, only a ponytailed head about to pop off its neck, but with a feat of improvisation Kenosha sucked a big gulp of air in her cheeks and popped her lips as though spitting watermelon seeds, which shot clean through the witch's head. A whirlwind approached Hedgewish from the east. Who this time? Well, Clown Muffle again. Hedgewish had long entertained the prospect of fickle Clown Muffle turning on her. In her back pocket she had kept the Handmaiden Midlothian combo for that moment. but in this bedlam the setup was unmanageable. Her fakes were shoved every direction, some killed outright just from falling beneath the clattering feet, and she had started to run out of viable lines of defense. Clown Muffles batted them aside no matter who they were. Fake Darien deflected. Fake Kenosha poleaxed. Worthwhile Chicago fighters dwindled, but this was the girl who beat the real Chicagoans anyway. That meant the other files. Denver's, lackluster at best. Elder Seattle, Full Metal Medieval, bulky enough to buy time, waved a laser mace but mostly just got in Clown Muffles' way. She had memorized literally every form in her collection, she only needed the correct combination. She had full confidence in that fact. Fake Seattle came apart in many armored pieces. Clown Muffle had manufactured a purpose, but her gem was still in the dumps. That was it, right? That was it, Hedgewish thought as a bubble of blood from one of her healers intercepted the playing cards and popped a sanguine deluge. That was it, Hedgewish needed no power but her own. Killkillkillkillyu. Bloody scream of rage split the middle and the capital itself came alive, tens of thousands of mouths opening across its surface and gnashing at the legs of everyone gathered. Above, hopping from falling shard of ice to falling shard of ice, Cook maneuvered a small moon from the bogus starscape via tendrils that stemmed from its polar ice caps. It actually looked like a duel between two equivalent powers. DuPage flowed her black body like a malleable ocean surface, waves and wisps, which complemented Cook's powers perfectly. A rather dull, dim-witted visual metaphor, black liquid against crystalline clear, an obvious right versus wrong. Of course, DuPage had the dignity to never couch her atrociousness in any sort of sanctimony. An example to emulate. But the question of whether DuPage could defeat Cook remained. Cook's cowardice had always been beneficial, because if any magical girl in this universe could defeat the Archon DuPage, it was her. Even now, clouds of moisture burst around her and rained hellfire droplets in concentrated bursts. Wherever they struck sizzled and melted away, revealing for even a moment a white capital beneath. Unlike Cicero, Cook could attack many places, every place, at once. She shattered a developing form with her moon as she severed a circle of DuPage and left it to rot. Pieces peeled back, froze solid, disintegrated. It became clear, actually, that DuPage was laughably jobbing. The most impressive counterattack she could muster came from her endless voice, Killyu Killyu. The biggest obstacle was everyone on the dome. Cook seemed unwilling to injure them, so to attack a piece of the ground she had to first sweep them aside with a flat wall of ice, something that batted even Hedgewish aside as she bounced between the crowd and lost sight of Clown Muffle. DuPage didn't even seem aware she was giving up far more than Cook gave, if Cook could be said to be giving anything. Cook made it look easy. First in St. Louis, on the arch. Then by the bridge, Cook, as Aurora, overcame DuPage easily each time. A naturally bad matchup. The Empress, paranoid, perhaps fostered Cook's development in a way specifically to limit DuPage's capabilities within the Empire. After all, she chose Cook specifically for the mission of her assassination. Fucking hell. Hedgewish hadn't planned on this being a problem. DuPage was essential, even if only asleep, better if only asleep. Forgetting Clown Muffle momentarily, she searched her briefcase for a Cook counter. Lessons from Pokémon said electricity. And the first electricity user she could remember was Midlothian, not practical for this sort of combat. What about her healer who made blood bubbles? Could she do something with other liquid? No. Then what the fuck was the point of this useless bitch? Cook could control it as both ice and vapor, hot or cold. Ice or fire powers would thus be useless too. Think outside the box, idiot. All you need to do is bypass her defenses and the fleshy brown lich in the center is easy prey. She consulted her teleporters, her psychic attackers. Here we go, 3 of the former and 2 of the latter. If she unleashed them together, even with their dinky offenses, they needed only a single good hit, Cook's gem hidden in her hibiscus hairpin. Clown Muffle came whirlwinding between clamping jaws of Capital, spraying a parabolic arc of white doves. Off guard, Hedgewish swung her briefcase and swatted enough doves out of the sky to avoid being pecked screw-eyes, although a splatter of bird shit did smack her shoulder. At which point the Capitol dome detached. At first it wasn't clear why, but Hedgewish realized, Cook had severed it. She had isolated the core of DuPage from the rest of the body that spanned the city. Shit, the dome had made that maneuver easier than it should have been. What the hell was DuPage thinking, staging the battle in such a place? Nothing, she was thinking nothing, duh. But Hedgewish lacked the luxury to not think. She summoned Denver's friend Calgary, who had conditional null magic powers. The fake Calgary swung chains of anti-fantasy that severed both the curdling bits of DuPage and the cards, doves, machine guns, chainsaws that Clown Muffle juggled recklessly along her gallivant. It had more effect than Hedgewish anticipated. Clown Muffle had to dance back in a rare defensive gesture. But it wouldn't work for long. Clown Muffle's physicals without illusions were high enough. Meanwhile DuPage. After severing the dome, Cook had quickly eaten away more and more of the segmented DuPage that draped it. Although DuPage still screamed KILLYOU mixed with SLUTFUCKBITCHCUNT and other fun strings, she had been reduced to a skullcap of darkness at the dome's apex. Cook was in no worse shape than heavy breathing. Hedgewish broke for them and drew the 5 sheets she previously prepared, but before she flung them to the ground, a single playing card pierced all 5 in a row. Fucking. Fake Calgary died, and soon afterward a wrecking ball Clown Muffle bowled through her healing squad. Hedgewish sent the last of her barrier team to intercept. She had sprinted close enough to hear Cook, despite Cook's languid volume.
Sorry. This'll be good for you too, Yaz.
What the fuck did you call me? Icicle spears from every direction pierced DuPage's avatar, which was more or less what remained of her. Black blood splurted. Everyone cheered. Well, those not locked in combat with the witches. A bleeding Kenosha ran to the fore and howled for Cook to finish it. The albino with whom Cook had arrived waved arms and hopped to try and see above the heads of several tall, handsome men.
How sad.
Cook directed her magic with the aplomb of a maestro but the face of a hangman. More and more of DuPage was eaten away.
You. And me. Could I have done this any time? Even that day 4 months ago? I gave up too easily. You're not hard to beat.
Beat. Beat. Beat. BEAT 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 HHKKKCHHGHNNBNNGHKKKH. The impaled, twisted, hemorrhaging avatar of DuPage, standing in a sad puddle of densified hatred, began to cough. Her chest hiccuped violently within the remains of her cocktail dress, a heave, her mouth opened, closed, opened wider, eyes bulged, black veins hoisted to the surface of her pallid skin. She spat something up. It whizzed at Cook fast as a bullet, but Cook sidestepped without change in her disappointed expression.
Well,
she said as she pressed her waters further into the territory of DuPage's body, erasing her now up to the legs.
At least I get to be the big hero for everyone? I'll admit it's undeserved. If it's any consolation to you, nah, maybe it'll only make you more mad? Well, anyway, I think after I kill you, then maybe I'll try dying too. I held on for such a long time, but after certain consideration, I have to wonder why.
You'll die now, bitch. The projectile DuPage had spat orbited the Capitol dome. It whizzed full circle and nailed DuPage's avatar in the back of her head. DuPage expanded and erupted like a big bubble. In the moments before the projectile had landed, Hedwig and Cook and everyone finally realized what it was. Small, shiny, a glint even in this bleak world, a soul gem. A soul gem that Hedwig, bookkeeper of the Empire, recognized. She had kept detailed information on the shape, color, and size of each imperial soul gem, true, but she recognized this one in particular because she saw it plucked from the most horrifyingly mutilated body she had ever witnessed. It was the soul gem of 4th Centurion Aurora, which DuPage 4 months ago had swallowed whole. The splattered mass of DuPage's avatar coalesced around the soul gem in the shape of a new figure, Aurora herself. Nude, withered, endless eyes set straight into the ground before her precariously tilted feet.
"Get out, Val!"
screamed Kenosha, whirling a lasso or grappling hook over her shoulder. By the time she finished those 3 short words, it had already ended. A small yellow ball appeared near Aurora and zipped in a perfectly circular arc. 3 standing sheets of ice vanished. Cook understood this power. She was too smart not to realize what she had to do. She was already bouncing back on the heels of her gladiator sandals. She was not moving fast enough, the ball had not started far enough away. By Kenosha's 3rd word, Cook shut her eyes, pressed her lips into a form of smirk, and shook her head. Then she vanished, unmade from Aurora's circle. Kenosha tossed her lasso and only realized at the end of her swing she was too late. She staggered forward, onto a knee, and shrieked. The albino looked confused, didn't seem to realize what was happening or how. Cook was simply gone. Gone the way Clown Muffle might have made her gone after shuffling a sheet in front of her. All the ice and water disappeared. The moon, no longer supported, landed against the dome and bounced off. Aurora hung her arms and lolled her head toward the splotch of black that remained of DuPage.
"May I?"
she said, hoarse, so hoarse it was as though her throat had been clawed out.
"May I please die now too?"
The black splotch said nothing. Already the rest of her body was streaming in from the rest of the city. Thick lines of the blackness crawled up the dome, weaved between or rushed through the crowds of everyone, concentrated toward the single splotch. Any of them, anyone decent at least, Kenosha maybe, Clown Muffle of course, even possibly some of the other magical girls who had snuck into the fray, any of them could have ended it at that moment, before DuPage had a chance to recuperate. But Kenosha was on her knees, Clown Muffle breaking the final barriers, and everyone else too confused. Now that the ice was gone, DuPage could reclaim her severed self. The tendrils streamed to her. Aurora asked again,
"Please. I did it for you. Kill me."
Without a word, almost grudgingly, a tendril shot from the mass and speared Aurora cleanly through her soul gem. The dead eyes went blank and Aurora's corpse dropped onto its side. The thump of a real, corporeal body roused Kenosha and she roared up, blasting twin Tommy guns at the swelling mass. Too late. Clown Muffle stepped through the final barrier and opened her tuxedo jacket, the barrel of a tank extended from it and fired a mortar shell. Clown Muffle was still a problem. Clown Muffle would never die, while everyone else would. Hedwig had to kill her, or she'd find a way to win. Clown Muffle's soul gem was black to its limit, but Hedwig believed 100% that total despair would never come to her. Not naturally, at least. Hedwig placed her hand on her own soul gem. Darkness streamed out, at her direction. It snaked toward Clown Muffle. The enchantment that Hedgewish previously placed on Clown Muffle's soul gem protected her from the killer, dense despair of DuPage's Archon, but clearly it couldn't protect her from ordinary, run-of-the-mill despair. And Clown Muffle only needed a little more, a tiny push. If this failed, Hedgewish could simply kill herself and destroy all her enchantments. That's right. Clown Muffle's life was tied to hers. But let's see if we can win first. Save the trump card for later. The last of her standing fakes rushed Clown Muffle at once, from 4 different directions. Only a distraction. She needed only a moment during which Clown Muffle didn't understand that the line of despair twisting toward her was a threat. Why would it be? She had lived in despair 4 months now, it had been harmless to her, but Clown Muffle, you see, it's different this time, don't see that it's different. The line coiled around and slipped up her back, where she could not watch, toward the head. You're a little dulled now, aren't you, Clown Muffle? As much despair as you already have. Your senses aren't so attuned. You. Something smashed Hedgewish in the face, hard, enough to lift her feet off the ground and whirl her almost 360 degrees. Whatever it had been exploded in a mash, wet and pulpy, covering her suit. Orange. Triangular pieces like curved glass shards. A pumpkin. Didn't matter. Hedgewish had already maneuvered the stream of despair close. Without looking she shot it toward where Clown Muffle's soul gem had been, only as she did so realizing how futile the effort was. Of course Clown Muffle would dodge, notice at the last second, perhaps had noticed immediately and only pretended she didn't to create tension for her audience, or something Clown Muffly like that. Except the line of despair hit. Hedgewish could feel it hit, as though the despair were an extension of her own body. An enchantment stopped her for a brief moment. Its membrane was too porous, it could block the dense despair but not this threadbare trickle. The despair sank in. It pumped straight into the gem, which was already nearly full, just as Hedgewish surmised. She swelled it to its limit. Only then did she dare wipe the pumpkin gunk from her eyes. She was in no way surprised to find that she had not, in fact, hit Clown Muffle. But she had come close. Damn close. It had taken such little time to fill up the nearly full soul gem that Clown Muffle was still in the action of falling, striking a parkour roll, and bouncing back to her feet as though nothing had happened. But it was clear from the position of the one that Hedgewish did hit that Clown Muffle had been pushed. By the witch, her pumpkin head replaced with her real one yet again. You've seen those movies, right? Everyone has. Where someone is about to get killed, and another character shoves them out of the way and dies instead. That conceit is always so absurd. Why does the shoving character have to stop exactly where the first character had been standing? Why not dive tackle them, so that both the shover and the shovey fly to safety? It's a ridiculous notion, one that never makes sense. Hedgewish hated it every time she saw it. It was even more absurd here, because the witch's soul gem was in a completely different location on her body than Clown Muffle's. This wasn't a bus hurtling down the street. It was a precision strike levied at a few square centimeters. The idea that shoving Clown Muffle out of the way somehow caused the witch to get hit was, frankly, unbelievable. Until Hedgewish realized that the witch was not standing on the ground. She had lifted herself up onto her broom, flying high enough so that an attack aimed for Clown Muffle's head had stricken the witch on her chest. The witch had specifically, knowingly, and willingly leapt into a position for Hedgewish to infect her with total despair. That's right. The witch didn't even like Clown Muffle. Hated her. Had spent all that time single-mindedly striving to kill her. Ah! The witch's broom flew out from under her. Her body struck the ground on its knees.
I did it, Clown Muffle. I can die without you.
The sky split open. A sick lurching sank Hedwig's stomach. Although she had planned to kill Clown Muffle this way, she forgot what would happen afterward. The light of heaven swept across them from the skyward fissure. The witches that remained of DuPage's harem, wrangled by Lilliputians, burst into dust instantaneously. Madoka Kaname, goddess, descended.
Hey,
said Clown Muffle, blind to Madoka but aware something was wrong with the witch.
Hey! Wait! You can't, no. I'm with everyone now. You're with me now.
The witch, who could see Madoka, closed her eyes.
I'll believe you, Clown Muffle. I'll die believing you. And I won't ever have to be proven wrong.
The warm, radiant light bathed Madoka Kaname opened her arms wide, a benevolent smile turned toward her charge.
Isabel!
Her voice echoed. It cut through the madness of the battlefield, of DuPage regaining form. Hedwig had time to wonder how nobody had died to the cycles in this battle yet, and discarded the thought, they were dying in quicker ways here.
Isabel, it's all right. You don't have to worry about anything now. It's okay.
Choir, organ, pipe arrangement. Her hands extended toward Isabel Leyva, 13, of Murrieta, California. She was not distracted, even as the slight form of Nagisa shoved to the fore and saluted.
I regret to inform you, but it's Sayaka. Taken hostage.
No consternation, Madoka accepted this fact as she stole from Isabel her despair, drained her dry of all feeling, hollowed out the pumpkin to create an ever-grinning jack-o'-lantern. Another figure, a shockingly mirrored image of Nagisa, differing only in her far more tasteful choice in dress, scrambled out of the wings of everyone. She didn't salute, but pointed, realized her rudeness, shoved her hand against her side, fidgeted, clasped them together, considered this finally an acceptable position.
It is you. God! I made my wish to meet you.
She was sobbing, she unclasped her hands to wipe her eyes, it was clear she had been sobbing since before Madoka's appearance, she must have finally figured out what happened to Cook.
God,
said Clown Muffle. She blinked at the same sky as everyone else.
Oh. Do you mean that one girl? Did she come back?
Hedwig sighed. She picked up her briefcase, straightened her tie, reflexively checked her phone, which had shattered at some point. She should have expected this moment, even if she managed to stop Sayaka from starting it. Or maybe if she waited a few moments, Madoka would finish her business and vanish again? She had already removed Isabel Leyva's despair. The final witch's empty head grinned a final piece. She vanished unceremoniously. Some happy eternity awaited her, peace of an everyone, maybe once removed from a world she felt she needed to change, she might be able to find true happiness. There was a joy in tedium. A ceaseless, unchanging world, where the only thing to do was register information, never act on it. If only you could just forget the world outside and devolve it into numbers and facts, is that your sort of compassion?
Is that your sort of compassion?
Hedwig said. She probably could just wait for Madoka to leave. But maybe this was a conversation she wanted to have. Because she wanted to believe that her actions were still capable of doing something worthwhile. Even if they were atrocious, maybe she wanted to buy into her lie that she did it not to simply end everything but to improve it, improve something, anything. Madoka, God, was the answer to that, and Hedwig was the conduit between everyone and God.
Well,
she continued,
I think maybe we've come to point where we can reach a...
Who you talking to? A thick, spear-shaped tendril shot from the black mass and gored Hedwig through her lower spine, into the mushy guts, where it burst and spread like roots into every part of her. Hedwig tried to slump to her knees, but she was not allowed to fall. Her legs bent weakly, so that only her toe tips scraped the ground. The black lines inside her delved, and delved, up her throat, into her eyes. DuPage used Hedwig's eyes to see. To see Madoka. Good. Good. Thank God, good, fucking good, good. Every part of the black mass DuPage, every splotch extended. 1, 2, 5, 40, 10,000 lines shot toward the goddess Madoka Kaname from every direction, clamped around the geometry of her celestial body. The instant any piece of blackness made contact with even the train of her dress, it fizzled, curdled, snapped, and rained soot, but the sheer quantity of DuPage continued to press forward past this obliterating aura of anti-despair, overpowering suffocation of all these endless hates conglomerate to its final marshal. The specter of a young woman bleeding to death in bathtub formed the bones of this boneless thing that could not be killed faster than it could penetrate forward. The first thick band seized Madoka by the ankle and held long enough for an endlessly repeating stream of similar bands to attach and replenish any hate painstakingly eradicated. A quiet gasp of agony came from Madoka's mouth, the glow of her alchemized eyes tilted upward. Nagisa sprung to her aid instantly, blew her horn and spewed bubbles to such pitiful avail, even if she were powerful enough to break a line of DuPage, 5 lines of DuPage, 15 or 20 lines of DuPage, even if her bubbles multiplied and burst with such cacophonic spray that whole swatches dissolved, that the bare dome shone phosphorescent with her pink sheen deluge, it was not happening fast enough, surely enough. Nice to meet you. My name is DuPage. You'll die. While the entirety of the Archon's attention bore upon God, almost as an afterthought, a sleight of tentacles hit Nagisa like batting a fly. Despite everyone still alive, that is, hacking at the blackness, striking, crushing, shooting, using any weapon available, despite the concerted effort of everyone, even if they did not know what they were fighting or why, even if they did not see the god being slowly bound and crushed before them, despite all this they were inutile. Cook alone had done more than any of them. Because even if they had everyone, DuPage had everywhere. And they could not strike with enough breadth to sever her. Not even Nagisa. Of course, Hedwig swayed within her affixation. Clown Muffle, of course. The one woman who can stand against everyone. She could stand against everywhere, too. Clown Muffle possessed more certainty than God. Even as God's anguished cries transformed to piercing shrieks, even as her choir accompaniment clattered into an orchestra where all but 2 members had been gunned down by a madman, well, even then Clown Muffle would prevail. Clown Muffle wasn't doing anything. Clown Muffle couldn't see God. Clown Muffle was looking at DuPage's avatar as though it were the thing that mattered. Then the angels. Nagisa and Sayaka were but 2. Any moment now, the sky would break open. The souls of all departed since antiquity would stream down, a concerted force of the greatest heroes mankind had ever mustered. Yes, actually, this was perfect, this was the moment, finally, where Madoka would be forced to act, forced to preserve herself, break her own foolish rules, resurrect this world. A coil finally reached around her throat. Her white dress had ripped, space and stars rather than blood ran down it. Her screams had become something altogether different than the human sensation of sound. Hedwig swayed.
Madoka, I'll save you!
Nagisa shouted as all her bubbles were popped. She had shifted her strategy and now shoveled massive chunks of the blackness onto a shiny silver platter with a covering cap like someone might serve at a fancy restaurant. Her comic witch form, that cartoon worm Charlotte, drove through the blackness gnashing perfectly triangular fangs over and over, ripping and gulping down parts of the archon. She bit through gristly tendons to sever many of the strands that enveloped Madoka, but it only took a few seconds for the after effects of swallowing so much despair to show on a face now spotty with clown makeup. Nagisa sagged to her knees and vomited. The darkness flowed out in a torrent and rejoined the hole. Nonetheless, she forced more onto her platter.
Why?
Madoka managed to choke out as the sky shattered like glass.
Yasmin.
DuPage was not one to dwell on why. Come on, Madoka. Don't tell me you don't know why by now. Are you so naive? Nagisa, between gasping wheezes, tilted her head imploringly to Hedgewish.
You can save her, you have the power, Lila. Nagisa.
Madoka could barely wheeze.
Nagisa, run, get away.
Of course. That's why there was no flood of ghosts from heaven. No army of the dead. Because even now she wanted to protect everyone. Madoka didn't want to risk losing her friends, she would sit still and do nothing and be crushed to pieces, you fucking idiot. Just like her wish, she would annihilate her own being to allow everyone a better chance at life. You idiot, your friends are part of you now, if you die will they even exist? Or do you think they'll take up your mantle and serve as the law of the cycles in your absence? God, maybe they'd do a better fucking job. Maybe she thought that stalker chick with the long black hair would swoop in and save her as always. If that girl even still existed. Maybe she was like everyone else nowadays and just wanted to die. Was that it, Madoka? Did all this despair start with you? One of Madoka's arms came off. A stringy line of liquid space, inset with glittering stars, draped from her stump to the severed limb, until DuPage's formless body slurped it up. Nagisa swooned in disease delirium, her eyes swirled. Everyone struck uselessly at the body. Kenosha fired a fake machine gun, gasping for air. Clown Muffle swung at phantoms. Hedgewish swayed. Someone climbed up one of DuPage's sloping tendrils. Wispy, white. That albino. Almost undoubtedly something Dr. Cho created. Her hands grabbed the sinewy bits. Her footing was unsure. She slipped and almost fell but caught the piece of DuPage currently tearing off Madoka's leg and stabilized. She crouched, held out her arms for balance, and flung herself forward. Rather than anything meaningful, she wrapped her arms around Madoka's torso, one of the few parts not yet in DuPage's grasp, near the gem that might be Madoka's soul gem or might just be decoration. Hedgewish didn't fucking know. She grabbed on and held, and that was it. She did absolutely nothing else. No, that wasn't true. She shouted, "Help me! Everyone, help me!" Nobody was listening, of course. Madoka's leg came off. At this rate she'd be quartered. But the albino kept crying, "Help, everyone, help!" She gave up on everyone after a few moments and shouted directly at Kenosha, "Help me! Help me!" Kenosha had expended a ton of energy. Sweat beaded on her brow and her ponytail hung limp. She tilted her head toward the albino and didn't seem to know who she was at first. Then she came to her senses. "Grab me and pull," said the albino. "Everyone, pull." Alright, fine." Kenosha seized her. She pulled. Them pulling together did not improve Madoka's plight one iota. "Everyone, pull!" the albino screamed. Kenosha glanced over her shoulder at the crowd. Her eyes settled on a gang of well-built, handsome young men in impressive suits who collectively wailed on a single tendril with blunt objects.
Damn it you guys, fucking help, got it!
The young men looked up, looked around, saw Kenosha. They seemed completely confused as to what Kenosha was doing, but at another shout they rushed to her.
Pull, pull,
the albino kept shouting, and the whole gang, 10 or 12 total, grabbed Kenosha in not quite a chain but a gaggle and pulled. Soon they were all shouting for help, to pull. Nagisa, wiping the black backwash from her mouth, shouted weakly too. Madoka had a tendril through her gut. Her head lolled. But more people, seeing the growing group all pulling at something together, joined. First it was mostly magical girls, maybe because they recognized Kenosha, but soon random everymen and women clambered up the tendrils, grabbing, pulling. Beautiful, right? What a beautiful sight. Could make you cry. If it wasn't a useless fucking gesture. No matter how many people grabbed hold, even as the effects snowballed and soon almost everyone was joining in, acting on a kind of herd or mob mentality, nobody understanding what they were doing but seeing that everyone else was doing it and feeling compelled to participate. No matter this swelling of human mass, nothing happened. Their combined pull could not even budge Madoka. DuPage only laughed, her avatar again erased by Clown Muffle, again forming out of the blackness somewhere else. She did not even bother with the people grabbing Madoka. In fact, since they no longer fought her, it gave her more tendrils to sprout. Useless. Fucking useless, fucking useless, fucking useless.
Lila, you can end it.
Nagisa again. Crawling toward the group to grab on and pull too.
Lila, you know who can end it.
Do you see it, Hedgewish? Damn, and I didn't think we'd actually do it, actually kill God. Yep. This oughta end things nicely. God dead, hope ruined, a world where both wraiths and witches ran free. Wouldn't last the year. Ha, ha ha, ah ha 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 ha. Not the slightest hope of renewal. She closed her eyes. She unhinged her jaw to sigh. It was the most she could do. A bit of movement in her extremities. Her fingers fiddled with the latch of her briefcase. Just like how Cook would say. Plus 15 question marks at the end. Her briefcase opened. She did not need to look to find the file she needed. Denver kept less detailed files than Chicago. With one exception. Hedgewish might have expected some significant depth for the other Aurora, but that Aurora had no file at all. Either Kenosha dropped it during her hasty flight from the city, or Denver did something to it. So Denver had one file of consequence, a file so detailed it put Chicago to shame. Less file and more diary. Pages upon pages of observations, understandings, explanations, questions, thoughts, answers, loves, hates. A hefty chunk of paper, clipped together by a clothespin. Many pages missing but the gist of it remained. Hedgewish lacked the motor skills in her commandeered body to do much else than knock over her briefcase and spill the file onto the ground. Before her she appeared, Sage Reese. Sage Reese. Ah, welcome back. How have you been? Sage Reese didn't reply. She clapped one hand atop the other and held them out crisscross. The star-shaped emerald set in the palm of her long white glove broadcast a dazzling array of light on the 10,000 humans grabbing hold of one another. Out her gem emerged her powerful star rod, 12 inches of candy cane hilt bedecked with a glorious 5-pointed star, razor sharp. As soon as the last of it left her gem, she caught it in her other hand and held it aloft.
This cosmic effervescence shall illuminate the heavens and guide mankind on their inexorable journey to the stars. Phase 1, Activate.
Rainbow glimmers manifested across her body and formed into armor, bracers for her wrists, plates above her shins, a thick belt around her midriff. Her glasses morphed into a solid sheet of visor and an array of bogus Starfleet medals jingled down her chest. She posed, it was necessary, as her file indicated in all capital letters, as a glint of light flashed at her back and caused everything to twinkle. Phase 1, Activated. She tossed her star rod into the air. It twirled overhead like a baton, held its position far longer than gravity ought to have allowed. As it did, she struck another pose, wrists clamped against each other to form the shape of an unbending X. One leg bent at the knee as she leaned to the side, supported solely by the other.
In this milky dream of infinity, mankind spreads unfettered. Planets, solar systems, galaxies cannot contain them. Only heaven remains, and this light shall lead them into that unknown. Phase 2, Activate.
A hand jolted out to catch the star rod, which suddenly dropped. Her visor sprouted into a full helmet and sharp wings emerged from her back. Thrusters engaged in a line across them and she hovered upward, above the mass of DuPage. Phase 2, Activated. Her head bowed, as though in deference to the complete blackness before her, the blackness of the words that echoed almost past the point of sense, THISISALLIEVERWANTEDISN tit. The words that, Hedgewish knew, rose before only a stronger disappointment than any before. DuPage could never quench her hatred, not in this form. Hatred was her existence, and if she could not hate, she would negate herself with endless sleep. It was time to sleep.
The unlimited darkness of the universe folds inward upon itself. Man ascends ever higher towards celestial heaven, but finds instead of stars only the Stygian hunger of the void.
No poses. No bombastic declaration, only a whisper. Yet her voice carried even in this calamity, even as God crumbled like a statue within the span of her visor.
Phase 3, Activate.
Denver's armor shimmered black and stars, galaxies, aurorae danced across her body. The miasma had already darkened everything, but it yet grew darker in a sphere around her as she held aloft her star rod. The five-pointed star at its tip pulsed, trembled, cracked, its points split from the body and turned inward to pierce it. The yellow center unpeeled like a blooming bud until all gleam of gold became only an orb of total black. Phase 3, Activated. Denver could not move during Phase 3, so her positioning during Phase 2 was key. She had drifted away from Madoka and the Everyone Army, closer to Clown Muffle and DuPage's avatar. The avatar was near DuPage's true core, but that didn't matter so much. The entirety of this black void was part of DuPage's body. And while Cook or Clown Muffle or Nagisa or someone else suitably strong might cut off a piece of that body, DuPage could not. No matter how hard DuPage tried, she could never remove from herself even a square centimeter of her hatred. And there was not much in this world but her. The sea of black rippled, undulated. The rod of Sage Reese formed the eye of a vortex immeasurably powerful, a portal from this world to somewhere distant and empty, a black hole. How hard can you pull, everyone? Or else you'll be pulled in too. Did DuPage not notice the swirl of herself twisting toward the vortex? Or did she not care, so set as she was on her singular goal? Hedgewish's body scraped against the ground. Everyone who hadn't been grabbing onto the massive group already grabbed now to stop from immediately flying into the hurricane. Out of the sky came the moon and stars that peeled off the backdrop like stickers on a wall. The ground directly below Denver cratered, parts of the dome separated from the black surface and crumbled in a jagged line toward oblivion. People were screaming. Nagisa floundered at the end of someone's hand. Despite her weakness, someone had thought to reach out and grab her. It was not even an important someone, just a wrinkle-eyed middle-aged mother who clamped her by the wrist. Hedwig's files swirled. Her face swirled. She had long since directed those that held Sayaka's gem hostage to move far away from this place, and to take Sayaka's bound body with them. The first part of DuPage was pulled into Denver's Stygian hunger. At that instant, one piece of her traveled 10,000 light-years or more, and the canvas of her body was stretched between those points in space. The dies became now a horrid shriek, pain, rage. She at least knew who was at fault. Hedwig's insides ripped apart. The roots twisted and punctured, and her skin split all over her face. Part of her 10,000 light-years away, though. The rest of her started following swiftly, massive streams of black sea swirling. Most of her grip on Madoka peeled away. She maintained solely her grip around the neck, and even that faltered, stretched taut, that shriek continuing forever and loud enough to burst eardrums into bloody mush, dragging, scraping, and all ending now. Here's your Stygian hunger, here's the product of your journey to the stars. Farewell. The last roots that pinned Hedwig to the ground let go, and she hurtled toward the void, too far from everyone for them to grab her. Sayonara. Arrivederci. So long, mother. So long, father. So long. She snagged. Her body jolted. The force pulled against her, but she had stopped moving. Clown Muffle, the only other one outside everyone, had caught her by the wrist. She held her baton against the ground, and even though it was just a baton and had not pierced the crumbling dome, it affixed her solidly. Her top hat refused to leave her head despite gale force winds, and her bowtie barely ruffled. Perfect. Perfect. Just what I wanted anyway, right? You're all coming with me to hell. Ah. You won't just die, you're coming with me to hellllllllllll. The final tendril connecting her to Madoka refused to break. The whole massed arm of humanity lurched forward across the dome. Soon the dome would no longer exist, and they would have no world left to which to anchor. There it's all black, all black, all black, all black, all black, all black, all blaaa. Something flashed out. A single, vivid purple bolt. It stuck in what remained of the ground at an oblique angle. It was a neon purple arrow. Where did it come from? Who fired it? There was nobody. Everyone else grabbed with both hands, someone else in the chain of everyone. Yet someone had fired an arrow, and with that arrow, they had severed the final tendril. Still screaming a final DuPage swirled into the vortex. The pull against Hedwig's body suddenly became unbearable. After all, DuPage wasn't simply holding on to her. They had become linked, irrevocably. The rest of her, across the whole city, not just the void, was whipping into Denver's final black hole at infinite speed, far faster than anything else being pulled, because unlike the dome that could crumble, her body's natural impulse was to hold together, as one united everywhere. And that everywhere was going somewhere else. As the first of it did, so did the rest. But she held her link to Hedwig, and Clown Muffle held Hedwig.
Let go,
she said, or rather mouthed. Clown Muffle held. Why? Their relationship had long since severed.
You're everyone too,
said Clown Muffle, who could be heard. "Oh."
"Thank you,"
said Hedwig.
"Thank you for reminding me."
Her attaché case, linked to her other arm by a chain, dangled behind her. With all strength mustered she swung. Her body had already started to deteriorate from DuPage's tendrils. So it only took one swing, with a magical girl's strength. She swung her case, hard as she could, against the arm that Clown Muffle held. The bone shattered. The ragged skin and flesh stretched for a few seconds, then split. Hedwig and the last Moor of DuPage disappeared into an endless blackness. The moment afterward, Sage Reese seized her black hole, dropped to the ground through the completely caved space where the dome had once been, and dispersed into dust. End of chapter. Chapter end.